Hello, I'm Lisa Tyler, your host of Senior Connections. This is a show brought to you by Senior Resources, your local area agency on aging. We're here to help navigate what can be a sometimes very confusing network of services for older adults, their caring families. And so we're here to try to inform and assist you with all kinds of topics, whether it is long-term care options, Medicare assistance, cost of services, or much more than that. And so today I'm very pleased to have with us a couple of lovely ladies from Harbor Hospice. I have with me Deanna Sines, who's a social worker at Harbor Hospice, and Robin Anderson, who's a nurse practitioner. And we're going to talk about advanced directives, which is a topic a lot of times people don't want to hear about, but we're going to inform you, we hope, today. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So we're in April already, hard to believe, which has historically had National Healthcare Decisions Day. This year they've expanded it to the week. So starting with Easter Sunday, that next week through the 22nd of April is National Healthcare Decisions Week. Purpose is to help people across the country understand the value of advanced healthcare planning. And we have a local coalition, the Chartered Healthcare Planning Coalition, that is also working on that topic. I've been involved in that for about a year and a half. Deanna, I know that you've been involved, so we're going to talk about that. What is it? What is healthcare planning? What are advanced directives specifically? Because a lot of people don't really give a thought to that until sometimes it's too late. They're in a hospitalized situation and all of a sudden they need to start, either they or family members need to start making those decisions. Studies show, I'll give a couple of statistics first. Studies suggest that only between 18 and 36% of people, so far less than half, actually have an advanced directive. And even when they do, sometimes their doctors don't know about it, which makes it very difficult to honor an advanced directive. So an advanced directive is a legal document that tells your healthcare providers who you wish to make medical decisions for you, what kind of treatments you want or don't want, if you aren't able to tell them that yourself. So let's get to some questions that people might have. There's lots of them, because this is something people don't talk about nearly enough. So let's start with some basics. Deanna, who needs an advanced directive?
That's really easy. Everybody needs an advanced directive.
And why do they need that?
Even though we don't like to think about it, we don't like to talk about it, as you said, a serious illness or injury can happen to anybody at any time, at any age. They don't discriminate. It's really important for everybody to have their wishes in writing, having selected a person to follow those wishes for them in the event that something happens and you can't speak for yourself.
Go ahead. So, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Nobody likes to think about death. And this is short of death, because this isn't just like what I want my funeral to look like.
Right.
This is healthcare planning.
Exactly.
I am incapacitated. I am unconscious. I can't make the decisions. So, Robin, why is it important for someone to put their wishes in writing?
Because you never know when things will happen, and also if there is a conflict of those who are trying to make decisions for you, it's a good reference for them to be able to go to and say, but this is what they say. This is what they put down is important to them and what they would like to have honored for them.
So what are some key points that might be covered in an advanced directive?
Things like, it used to be when people said life support, all you thought about was being on a machine to help you breathe. But nowadays it's become much more than that, and those decisions are much more complex. So it's about whether or not, if you get to a point where you're not able to swallow safely, do you want a tube into your stomach for feeding and hydration? So, it goes from being on the breathing machine to being fed. Also things like dialysis get in there. So there's all those things which are all considered artificial means to sustain life. And everybody has different thoughts on what that means to them. And those are general terms. I think more importantly, people who have already a pre-existing condition, diabetes, hypertension, cardiac disease, these issues may be more important for you to really talk about, because it's much more likely that you're going to have to face those decisions in the future.
So it's important for everybody, but for some people a little more important to have that conversation
Absolutely.
sooner.
And I guess you can also look at why even a healthy young, we say every adult, so 18 and up, why an 18-year-old would need to do that. And if you look at the cases across the United States that have gotten the most attention, they are young people. You look at Terry Schiavo down in Florida and all the controversy that went around that because she didn't have an advance directive. Her parents and her husband didn't agree on what they thought was right for her, and because she had never really put it down in writing or talked to anybody specifically about it, the courts got involved, the government got involved, and that's really losing control of what you would want for yourself then. I mean, do you want the government making decisions about your end-of-life care?
Right. So that actually gets to what my next question. Is it good enough to tell somebody rather than have it in writing?
It's always good to start there because it is an ongoing discussion and you do need to talk about it. Just putting it down in writing doesn't always do it either, because if you put it down in writing and then put that piece of paper in a safety deposit box, nobody knows what those wishes are. So it goes hand in hand when you do the documentation and you put stuff down in writing that you should have these conversations with those who are closest to you. Because the other thing is that we have found, especially, and I work a lot in the hospital, when these issues happen, a son or a daughter or spouse will say, well, this is what he told me, and then the other family members will say, well, he never said anything like that to me. So it puts a lot of pressure on that person that if you've only talked to that one person, it really puts a lot of pressure on them to advocate for you. So the more you can talk about it, then the more people you can talk to it about, the better it is.
So the ideal situation would be for it to be in writing and to have talked to multiple people.
Absolutely.
Especially in the Schiavo case, as you mentioned,
Right.
in Florida, which I remember. You've got a spouse and you've got parents, and parents never relinquish caring about their children. Understandably, we always want to do what's best. We don't necessarily agree that a spouse, depending on how long they've been involved, is going to know those kind of things. So having conversations with multiple people.
Absolutely.
Because somebody could be raised in a certain religion and change that, and parents might not want to realize
Shift.
that, or
Yeah.
we don't all live right next to
No,
our families
no,
like we used to. So
no.
a lot of this has changed. I remember growing up, and I cannot remember the name of it, but probably in the 70s or early 80s, there being another very publicized case
Karen
about...
Ann Quinlan.
I was thinking it was a Karen.
It is, Karen Ann Quinlan out of New York. Yep.
Right.
And
so-
her parents, after years of, she had had an incident and she was on tube feedings and stuff, and the parents had decided that no longer would she want to live like this and wanted to stop the tube feedings. The hospital took them to court and said, we can't stop life-sustaining treatment. So again, when you don't have these things in place, you get more people involved in that decision-making process.
So again, back to your point about sometimes you're going to get government involved. So even in that case, they made a decision that had to be heart-wrenching for them to decide.
Right.
And then they weren't
Right.
able to right away get
Right,
that
and
done.
out of that process really has come the fact of self-determination, that we have the right to make those decisions for ourselves. The problem becomes when we're no longer capable to voice what we want. How then do we follow that? And so that's where we come to the advance directive part of it.
So let's talk a little bit about patient advocates. Deanna, what is a patient advocate?
Really, a patient advocate is the person that you select to make your medical decisions for you if you become unable to make them yourself. You can select anybody as a patient advocate, anybody over 18, an adult. It can be your spouse, it can be your child, a sibling, a cousin, a good friend. Anybody you trust to follow through with your wishes.
Are there hints that you have for somebody who's deciding that? Because that's a responsibility. It's a big responsibility for somebody to be that. So I have an 18-year-old son. I'm probably not going to put that kind of a weight on him.
Right.
But, does it, what kind of things would you recommend somebody consider? And is it my mother? Is it my husband?
Well, like we've been saying, it's about having the conversation with people. So talking to all the people that are important to you and trying to determine who you think can handle it, who's willing to take on that role. I often have people tell me that they're going to pick their oldest child because they're the oldest. I asked them to think further about that. Just because, they're the oldest, are they really able to handle making those kinds of decisions? Are they able to think clearly in a difficult situation? Because a lot of times when they're making these decisions, something stressful has happened. There's a crisis going on. So somebody that can stay level-headed and follow your wishes instead of listening to everybody else or doing what they want to do.
And I think that's a good point to understand, is the reason to have the conversation with people is because you can weed out those people who say, Mom, if you said not to do it, I couldn't do it. I would have to do everything for you. And then that person probably couldn't follow your wishes for you. And it's not meaning that they're bad people or that they don't love you. It's that they just don't have the capacity to be able to make those decisions when it comes down to the wire. So again, having the conversations, it allows you then to really have everybody understand why you chose the person you chose.
And so when you have those conversations with somebody, do they have to sign something that says they agree to be a patient advocate?
They do.
Okay.
Yep.
You can't just assign somebody and then not let them know.
Right. Nope, they need to sign saying that they accept that role.
Okay. So it really is a very important part of this to have that. So we kind of addressed this, but I'm going to talk about it again, Robin. I'm, by my standards, young and fairly healthy.
Yeah.
I could be healthier, but why do I need an advanced directive? What would you tell me? Or what would you tell my 18-year-old son? Why does he need an advanced directive?
Because, accidents happen. And we don't anticipate them. And the other thing is to remember in this as just because what you decide at 18 you would want for yourself doesn't mean when you're 35 that's going to be the same thing. So this is not something that is stagnant. This is something that we're encouraging that you should actually have this discussion with your primary care provider annually, like at your annual physical, that you talk about what is important to you, what are your wishes, and so that every year it's kind of reviewed and can it be updated and changed so that and this is an important thing to talk to your advocate about too, or those people around you. At 18 you say, I would want everything done, I think I can fight through, do everything. By the time you're 55, you have diabetes, you're already maybe having lost a limb to it and are looking at maybe having to go on dialysis. So your perspective about whether or not you would want further treatment may be different than when you were 18. So it is a living, breathing kind of thing. You need to continue to adjust that, and you can change it at any time.
Great.
The other thing is remember that especially if you appoint an advocate, whether it be your spouse or somebody like that, something may happen to them. And so there is the ability to place like a second and third person as your advocate, but also at any time as circumstances change. If you get divorced, someone dies, you can change that document and change your advocate also.
So it's not a one and done kind of thing.
No.
It's a living, breathing document. Actually,
Absolutely.
we'll probably talk about that a little bit more. So if I'm in the hospital, who determines whether or not I can participate in my health care decisions? Is that, Deanna, is that a spouse, patient advocate, doctor, a combination?
Only your doctor, as well as another doctor or a psychologist, can make the official determination that you can't make your own medical decisions anymore. So it's not your patient advocate, it's not your sibling who makes that decision. It's up to the doctor to determine if you can participate or not.
And what kind of things are they generally looking for when they do that?
They're generally looking to see if a person is able to understand their current situation, if they can understand the options available to them for treatment. Sometimes it's easy if a person is not in a conscious state. They're obviously unable to make their own decisions, but sometimes if people have an infection or are at the end stages of dementia or even early stages, there can be confusion. So a doctor is looking to see if they're able to understand, if they're oriented to what's happening.
Is that why you said sometimes a psychologist is also brought in?
A psychologist is able to make that determination because that's kind of their area of expertise, evaluating a person's cognitive status.
And there is, mental illness too plays a role in that. And just because you're mentally ill does not mean that you are incompetent. So, and the other thing, to remember is that people don't have the right to take that away from you unless it's very clear that you don't understand the consequences of your choices. And we all have the right to make bad choices. And sometimes that's hard for those who love you to see you do sometimes. But we all do have that right to make bad choices as long as we understand the consequences that may happen with that.
So as long as the doctor has declared me competent, I could make a decision that I didn't want to continue with some life-saving measure.
Sure.
That might make my family unhappy.
Right.
But I've been declared competent, and
Right.
it's okay for me to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You know, and we have seen on occasion in the hospital where that happens, where somebody says, no, I don't want that, don't do that to me. They get progressively ill and they're no longer able to speak and let known, and their advocate comes in and changes it and decides to do that for them. So that goes back to stressing the importance of choosing someone that you feel could really honor your choices, even in the most difficult situations.
Have you ever come across something where in that person, the time where the person gets more ill, that they, I mean, could I indicate even during that time that I've changed my mind?
Absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
does that have to be documented in writing, or I just have to convey
No.
that?
As long
with
as you're able
witnesses,
to-
or
Yep.
medical people hear that and I say, no, I've changed, I do want to have
Yeah.
that. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not ready to go yet.
Right, right.
So it really can be changed on
Absolutely.
the fly.
Yes.
literally.
Definitely.
I would imagine in that case, though, that you mentioned, where somebody goes against those wishes, that maybe it's not a problem if the person passes, but if they don't, I mean, that can create a lot of stress
It can.
for a family.
It can, absolutely.
And it's also understandable, though, that you don't, when you
It's-
think you can make a decision when it comes down to it,
It's hard.
I can't make the decision to pull the plug, so
Right.
to speak, and,
Right.
and you know, have grandma or grandpa pass or whatever.
Yeah, you know, and it's it is a very hard and stressful time, and I think one of the things people need to remember is that, you know, we 30, 40, 50 years ago, many of these things weren't even available to us, and when we, even before antibiotics, which wasn't that long ago, when we got an infection, it was within a few short days or weeks that we had died. Kidney disease, the same thing. Those types of things. Heart disease. We've gotten so better at managing these chronic disease processes that our end of life has been extended. So I guess for lack of a better word, we're dying slower. So that period is extended out. And it's not like, boom, and you're going to go. It's more of that extended time. And so there's a lot more of those options in there to really think about. And so I would encourage people to really not focus so much on the things that could be done, but on what is important to them and what is a quality of life to them. And if you can more clearly put that down or talk to your family and friends about what that means, because there's no way you can understand every scenario that may happen to you to be able to say, well, if this happens, do this, but if this happens, do that.
Right.
It's more about if we knew that you could never be independent again, or, you know, you would never be able to eat again.
Right.
You know, would you want these other things done? Kind of stuff. So it's more talking about what are those things that are really important to you as a quality of life.
And you're right. I mean, even in my lifetime, I mean, our hospice I imagine, came out about this longer, slower death that we have. And because Harbor Hospice has been around 35 plus years, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Not just
Right
about
around
35
years.
Yes, close.
And so when you think about it, we didn't have to deal with these kind of things
No.
because people died at home already
Right.
frequently.
Right.
Or if it was the hospital, it was quick,
Yeah.
and we didn't have to make these kind of agonizing decisions, and people don't like to think about it, but it's
Yeah.
important.
And the other key is, remember, is not talking about it doesn't make it not happen.
Right.
And
The denial is a river, not
Yeah.
a good state to live in.
right, exactly.
So, Deanna, we've obviously determined an advanced directive is very important. Is it hard to complete one?
The actual process of completing advanced directive is not difficult. Having the conversations, as we've said, can be difficult for people, but completing the form itself is an easy process. There are lots of versions, templates out there that a person can use to fill in the blanks as to who they want to be their patient advocate, what kind of treatment they want, how they want to be treated at the end of life. So it's a fairly easy process once you know what you want to write down.
And I know you help people, so why don't you talk to us a little bit, tell our viewers
Yep.
about monthly service
Yep.
that you have available?
I am available at Tanglewood Park on the second Thursday of each month. You can call there and schedule an appointment with me, and I sit down with people. I encourage them to bring family with them to help to have these conversations. I help people think about these different scenarios and have these difficult conversations, try and get people to really think outside the box and be able to get that document completed at the same time.
Is there a cost for that?
Of course not. No, it's a free service.
I think that's really important for people to
Yeah.
remember because, you know, those conversations, I have to have these myself with my family, but, you know, you think about wills and there's an attorney for that and you need, and of course there's a fee for that. How is a living will different than an advance directive?
Well, a living will is really the portion in the advance directive where you're listing your preferences for treatment. A will is about your property, where you want your property to go when you pass away. So very different things. The advance directive, the living will, does not need an attorney to be completed. It simply takes the person's signature along with 2 witnesses that aren't of any relation to them. So it's easy to find witnesses to get it completed.
Okay.
Doesn't even need a notary.
Okay. So even if somebody is naming family members as their patient advocates, they're not the people who can witness it. You just need to have, and you could probably do that if they completed it with you, get the receptionist at the front desk.
That's
or
why it's
something
easy
like
at
that.
There's There's plenty of people available to sign as witnesses
But if
for
you're at
us.
home, your neighbors
Yep.
Right.
can witness for you.
Yep.
So, Robin, you have, I know you have worked a lot with palliative care.
Yes.
In your role as a nurse practitioner. Do you have any stories about people that you've helped? Because you've been trained.
I have.
Because there is a training, our viewers should know, there is a training people go through to be able to help called First Steps, and then there's a Next Steps.
Right.
And
Respecting choices.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices. And so can you talk about any experiences, not naming any names, of course, but any experiences that might be great to share?
I can do it as an overall because I have been doing this now for 18 years.
Oh my.
And I have to say that those people who have had these conversations with those who have been closer to it, it doesn't take away the sadness of losing somebody, you know, when they die, but it brings a peace to people to know that they're making the decisions that this person would want. On the other hand, when the discussions have not happened, those people who are very well-meaning, you can actually see it tear families apart. They become like 2 camps. One saying, this isn't what mom or dad or my brother would want. You know, you're torturing him, you're being mean, and the other side is you just want to kill him, you're not, you know, and so it becomes something that even after that person has died continues to really pull a family apart. And that's probably one of the saddest things to see, that it all could have been maybe alleviated completely if people had talked about things
So
and had
really,
these discussions.
completing an advance directive is truly a gift to your loved ones.
Absolutely.
Because it takes those decisions out of them, to know that you have put it in writing and talked to people about it.
And
So it's
they're
a gift to your family.
absolutely,
to do that.
and I have seen when there is a bit of a conflict and the advance directive is completed, we pull it out and said, I want to see what mom said. Pull it out and read it, and it will, you know, if they've put down there, do not want to be on artificial nutrition, do not want to have tube feedings. And so then the family can say, well, you know, I'm really sad, I don't know if I'd like that, but that's what she wants. And so it really takes that sting out of it a little bit and allows that advocate to make those choices without getting, you know, beat up for it.
So where does this advance directive live? Who keeps it? Or are there multiple copies? What's the ideal?
You should have multiple copies. You should keep a copy for yourself. Give a copy to your primary care provider. If you are ever hospitalized, have a copy with you. I keep mine in my glove box in my car. Right now, at my stage in life, I'm on the road all the time. If something happens to me, it's likely to be in my car. So my advance directive is with me if paramedics come or if I am hospitalized unexpectedly, it's there with me.
Should your patient advocate also have a copy?
Patient advocate should have a copy. You should keep a copy somewhere safe. I sometimes have people tell me it's in their safety deposit box. You can keep a copy there, but don't keep your only copy there.
Because who's going to think,
Right.
oh, mom's in the hospital,
Right.
we should go check the safety
It's
deposit box.
definitely should be
So if your
something.
primary care physician has it, does that get included in, because we're so computerized with the hospitals now, is that then computerized? Like for Mercy Health, our hospital
It
system
does.
here.
At this point, if you come in the hospital and you give us a copy, we do scan it in, and then it's always in there.
Okay.
And then if you update it, we can always, put a new one in there. They're looking at developing a registry that would be nationwide at some point that, would make it so when you travel and that kind of stuff, that's always available. So down the road, we're hopeful that, eventually it will be a document that's a living, breathing document that, can be pulled up wherever you are.
That would be wonderful, even
Right.
if they're all different documents. Because
Right.
I know that we're having discussions about changing the document we use locally to be more in line with what the region is doing.
Right.
But I don't think you've said the document isn't important.
No.
It's having the conversations and having something in writing.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we're running out of time, I want to make sure that we list the phone number, then we'll have probably a few more minutes still. But just to remind you, it's really important to put this in writing and have that conversation that there is help available, because nobody really likes to think about death, even though we're all going to die. None of us get out of this life alive that I've checked, as far as I know. One of the things we say in our Chartered Healthcare Planning Coalition, it's never too early until it's too late, and that's kind of what we've talked about. You don't want to get to that critical situation. So Deanna is available at Tanglewood Park every month for help, the second Thursday of the month, and you can call Tanglewood from 10 a.m. till noon. I think she's got some flexibility. If we start getting swamped with phone calls, that would be
Definitely.
lovely. Lovely issue to have. You can call 231-733-8643 to schedule an appointment to meet with Deanna. We are going to be setting something up in North Ottawa area for people in that. But we hope that more people will complete that, and you can call again. I'm going to give that number one more time, 231-733-8643. If you can't remember that, dial 211, and I believe they'll have that information as well. But let's, each of you, in 45 seconds or so, give me closing thoughts on what one thing you'd like our viewers to remember.
Really just having the conversation, having an advance directive in place. It is a gift to your family. That's what I hear the most from people I work with as well, that when it is in place, it really relieves a lot of stress, takes that burden off their shoulders when they have to make these difficult decisions. So we just can't stress enough how important it is. We're hoping that the more conversations we have, the easier it will get and it will become a norm.
Yeah, and that's it. It really, in other societies, talking about end of life is not such a big deal. In our society, we tend to really get away from that, and unfortunately, we do a disservice to ourselves by doing that. So it's important to just start the conversations.
One of the other things we've said, and we changed the name of our coalition. It used to be called the End of Life Coalition. It tells you what it is, but it's not really a great name. So charting your course, charting your wishes is kind of what we've talked about. When we talk about it's not end of life, it's life to the end. And isn't that truly what this is really
Yeah,
about?
absolutely.
It really, I can't say enough what a gift that is to your loved ones, to anybody who cares about you, to have those conversations and to take that pressure, that burden off of them. What is understandably a sad time, something we all need to face. So I hope that our viewers, excuse me, hope that our viewers have found this very informative. Again, for more information, you can call 231-733-8643 to reserve a time with Deanna at Tanglewood Park in Muskegon on Seminole Road. We hope that you have found this interesting. Please go out and have those conversations with those you love, find the forums, and get more information. Thanks for watching us today. We'll see you next month.